Now, you can just use this and then it will
The camera you said goes all the way down.
it will. So you can swing it to completely. And it looks like the gimbal, yeah. And again, it depends. Sometimes.
How many feet?
My drone, they're the same color. I also can see a battery life and signal strength on my remote, which is my visual cue that they're bound, right? So as it is right now, I can take off and manually fly it. I'm gonna still, this is one of the unfortunate things about charging on my laptop. I am gonna disconnect your battery for just a second. And then I'm going to plug my remote control into, like I said, this red cable. It's a multitasker. It is the way we connect it as well. So having a couple extra micro SD USB cables is also helpful addition to your kit. When I do that, my remote control has the word linked on it now. So that link tells me, okay, now I'm connected to a computer, but it's still not connected to the program yet. Okay, So down here in the lower left-hand corner is a green button that says connect. I'm gonna click on that connect button and the screen pops up. This is the only drone plugged in, so there's just the one. I can select it and hit connect. When I do that, now I have information about my drone. It's connected, it's getting feedback from it. So now, ground here. So now if I want to run the code, I just click the green triangle and it should run the code that I have the when click. So it should flip and then land, right? And then if I wanted to change to the fly forward, now we were talking about this, if you've done other coding, it can be a little confusing because they're gonna have to kind of figure out what 50% power is for a second, right? Like, how far can I actually go at 50% power for a second? And then they have to kind of use that to make them like test and calibrate it. It's not a distance, right? So then they would have to kind of run the code, say, okay, this is my starting point, took off. So 50% power per second took me about 2.5, 3 feet. Do a little basic math, figure out how long or at what power. I can change that to accomplish my task, okay? And force them to either manually fly or program for the drone to land inside that box. The box is not much bigger than the drone, right? So that's gonna be a pretty challenging confined space. There's a large drone, or whether you're just using this one in the classroom, especially with the way that they have to program angles. So obviously manual flight, you're probably saying fly triangle, it's not gonna be that challenging, but if they had to code the drone to fly triangle, they're gonna have to kind of draw it out and think through, okay, what angle do I need to program in order for this to circle back around and close, right? So polygon, come up with different polygons that they can fly. Circles, orbits, figure eights, those are all different flight maneuvers that they could do manually or coded that would be challenging for them, and they can practice their manipulating the controls in order to create those basic shapes. Disco drone is one that is suggested by CodeDrone because it has an LED, right? So it has different lights that you can program. So the idea is that they're coding it to turn different increment angles and then change the color of the light. Turn a different increment, change the color of the light. They're basically creating disco ball, right? It's just changing colors as it turns. It's a very simple activity, but it's a good introduction to the colors and having them learn how the different angles work in the different platforms. And coding drones to fly an obstacle course. So you can make your own obstacle course. Obviously, as teachers, we have limited funds for things. You wouldn't necessarily have to purchase an expensive obstacle course. You can make it out of like cardboard boxes are one of my favorite things to hold on to because you can use the cardboard for a lot of different things. But cut holes in cardboard boxes and have them fly through those holes. You can make gates out of PVC pipe. So PVC pipe is a fairly cheap investment that you can just go to the hardware store, buy the angles. I do have some pictures on here of some things that you can purchase that are helpful. So this is a quick pop-up. It's like a pop-up tent, kind of folds like the landing pads, and you can just pop it up, set it in your classroom. Another real quick public service announcement is, like, if you look in this room, we have sprinkler heads that have the little red tooth in the middle that if that, it's just glass, right? So if you hit that hard enough and you break that glass, what's gonna happen? It depends on the sprinkler system too, right? Like, is it a wet system, dry system? Is one gonna go off? Is the whole room gonna go off? Is the whole floor gonna go off? So you just wanna be careful of that. I can tell you, I asked for years to get the little covers. I bought, once I got over to the drone park, to go out and do outreach. So like if an elementary school's having a STEM night, I can take this and pop it up to demo and let them fly. And I have done that in an elementary school. The reason I liked this one is because it's not loose netting. So like over at the drone park, we currently have a drone stuck in the top, and that's because the props got wound around the netting. If you've ever used garden netting with drones, you spend a lot of time taking the prop off, trying to unwind it, put the prop back on, and then fly. This is made for gardening, and it's kind of kits that you could build yourself out of pool noodles and PVC pipe. But these are just some examples of some different obstacles. So you could give them like a vertical pole that they have to fly around, do that helix pattern, right? Go around. You've got circles that they would have to fly through, arcs they would have to fly through. I'm really not quite sure what they would use this one for.
Up and down.
You
But-
stand behind and then you have a spotter.
Okay, so it's for kind of beyond line of sight, which are some other activities. you
They
could
did
do.
that in that competition the year before, they had a big arch you had to fly behind, and you had to have
Yes,
communication.
that's one of those, so, blackout or something like
Yeah.
that, yeah, so, where you have to have somebody kind of tell you what to do back there. I liked to use green screens, because I had a big green screen anyway, so I would put that up, and it would really shield. You can also just have it turn around. And then a pedestal, so again, this is kind of like that confined space landing, right? Those pedestals are about as big as the drone, so you tell them to land on that, that's a pretty small target. This is an inflatable drone soccer net and goal. Never used it, can't say I have any personal experience with it, but I saw it and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I just wanted to include that as another option. Drone soccer's actually gotten kind of big, like Virginia. I don't know what the 400 is referencing, so I don't know if it's in metric.
Yeah.
This is just a scoring guide that we've used before for an obstacle course where they earn points, and then there's some rules that go with it. Like you can't land and relaunch. You could have them do these manually. You could have them code an obstacle course. Honestly, either one is challenging. Prop wash maze, this is where I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you just one of the 3 videos that's on here from a past competition that uses co-drones. So REC Foundation, which is a rope you launch from here, and then program your drone to fly into a box. And make them set the rules, or you set the rules, clarifying before whether or not the entire drone and prop guards have to be completely contained inside the square, or just the majority, or if you want to take it a step further with the co-drones, use color blocks and say only if your color sensor completely picks up are you allowed to claim that spot, and then have them play a game of tic-tac-toe using you can use coding, but honestly manual flight is another skill that we've been learning. Just don't let them move. Make them stand back here and use depth perception, or make it more challenging and have them stand back further and say, okay, now play tic-tac-toe, but once you land, you can't take off again, right? Or once you get within a foot of the course, you have to come straight down. So you can do manual flight or coded flight, but tic-tac-toe is a real simple activity that you can have them set up. Using drones. So like I said, even if you didn't want to get into like the whole Python scripting that we were talking about with swarms, you could have them manually code a synchronous, I did it with the telos. I made my students create a storyboard. They gave them a synchronous option where it says, okay, pick, and I provided like a 30-second clip and a 60-second clip of a song. I said, pick which song you want to do, mark the beat transitions, right? Say, okay, beat changes here, or there's a music change here. I want to see your drones do something. Like I want to see 6 different synchronous, they have to interact with one another. Storyboard it for me and then program your drones to do this show, okay? So you're making them put together an air show or dancing drone activity. That you also have the option on the co-drones to program sound. And it's not given to you in musical notes, but I'm pretty sure, I don't know, but I think there's apps that will actually detect notes and sounds and pitches. You might also just have some students that really like the music. So they could add sound and lights to their dancing drone show. Have them figure out how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, something like that on their drone while they're doing their show would be an additional activity that you could incorporate. All right, this next section comes with a big red caution, right? These co-drones were not built to carry any additional payload, okay? That is the company standpoint. Whenever you add a payload to a drone, you are altering its center of gravity, its balance, its performance. It takes more battery because you've added weight. If the weight is not loaded properly, if it's not loaded properly in line with the center of gravity, if it was or front loaded, right, then those drones are gonna, or those props are gonna have to spin faster in order to keep it level, because that gyro in there is gonna want to keep this level and steady while it's flying. So if you don't load your payload in line with the center of gravity of the drone, which you can talk about that when adding payloads, because adding payloads is definitely a huge part of what we do in the drone industry, right? But these little drones were not designed to carry a payload. That's my caution, that's my public service announcement. And I'm gonna show you an example of a payload that works and a payload that doesn't. So my suggestion is measure it. Like this is a ping pong ball, right? It's very light. I also have a little plastic container that I just hot glued to the top of my co-drone. Peels right off. You can have students build their own container out of construction paper, right? You can use the little condiment cups, the little plastic condiment cups, if you don't want to take the time for them to build their own out of paper. But with that being said, there are a couple activities that are just a lot of fun. Like the kids just, it has that cool factor, the kids like it. That you can do, just know that it's going to eat more battery because you added weight, so your battery life is going to go down. The drone is also going to get a little exhausted after doing it a little bit. It might get warm, so you might have to just stop for a little bit, right? I wouldn't do these every day, and I wouldn't do them all class, right? But maybe use it a carrot. Say, okay, hey, I'll give you the last 10 minutes of class to do Pong or Cornhole or whatever. But you have to do all this other stuff first, right? So I'm gonna demo it and we'll see how it goes today. So I've just put the ping pong ball in there. I'm gonna disconnect my controller from the computer. If your batteries don't charge, I have charged batteries. I'll swap out. Take it over here. All right, so I've unplugged it so I can manually fly it now. Gosh, the camera's out. Pressure's on here. So if I take off with this, it'll fly fairly stable. You'll notice that it kind of sunk a little bit there, right? I have some solo cups set up over here. So I'm gonna try, my goal is to try to flip it and get it to land in the solo cup. I actually did this last week and I'm afraid I'm not gonna be as lucky this time. There's skills, but, oh. Yeah, people are like, oh. That being said, it was still fairly stable flight. You could tell there was a little resistance. It was having to bulk up a little bit. This is just a little cornhole beanbag that I just literally some corn in and just I sewed and made my own little beanbag so that it would be small enough. It won't even take off. Right? That's as high as it'll go. So even just adding that little bit of weight to it, it's too much for the co-drone. So keep an overhead picture I found on the internet of a forest fire. I laminated it and I painter's taped it to the floor and I said, okay, there's your target. Now you have to land your beanbag, which is your water pack, on that fire. So I gave them a launch location over here and they had to pre-program a flight that it would go drop the package or drop the water and then come back to the home point. And then you can talk about how aircraft is used to put out fires. We're not gonna use drones because they just can't carry the payload to really put out a fire, so we're not gonna, it was kind of like we was talking about yesterday, there's gonna be applications that we just have to use manned aircraft for. But it's a good way for them to say, okay, again, I'm accomplishing a goal, right? Same thing for package delivery. You can use a series of things like metal objects and put a magnet on the bottom of the code drone. You can use Velcro, double-sided tape, and you can have them do a delivery where they have to go pick something up and then take it and release it somewhere. So then there's the cornhole ping pong. You can also purchase tabletop cornhole. I do have a tabletop cornhole board here. When I cut you loose to go fly, you're welcome to play around with these different activities. I don't know that I have a beanbag that will be light enough for you, but
Firefighters, then they do go to public service.
yep. So this is just one that you can buy. I made one on a Glowforge laser engraver so that the hole was a little bit bigger. So if you have a laser engraver at your school, that's another option. And then it comes with the little bean bags. So you can play a cornhole game, let them play a cornhole game. And then some other drone activities. So this first one requires a drone that has a camera. So you could do it inside with like a Tello or a smaller drone. Or you can take them outside with your Evos, because everybody's getting an Evo. You can do this activity. And what I did is kind of like a treasure hunt, except for I didn't make up clues. I just gave them the actual object to find. You could get creative with this and say, like, instead of just telling them, go find a fire hydrant and take a picture of it, you could say, you know, the object that firefighters use to provide water to, you know, a structure fire or something like that. Give them clues and make them figure out what it is that they have to find, and then go find it, take a picture, bring it back. So what I did was I just wrote a bunch of these things on paper, folded them up, put them in a cup, and then they had to pull 3 things out of the cup, so they didn't know what it was until they unfolded it. And then it was, okay, I'm gonna start timing you from the time you see the slips of paper till you go get pictures and come back with pictures of those. And then it's basically a race of how quick can you go out and find these things. So I gave you some examples of some different things. Gutter inlets, you can use like animal of your choice. We had chickens, free range chickens that would kind of hang out at the school. So we put chickens in there. You had to get a picture of like the white chicken or, you know, whatever you wanted to throw in there. We also had beekeepers on campus, so we had a beehive. So, you know, flying down, taking a picture. You don't have to get right on it. Right? We don't disturb them or bring them our way, but yeah, just some different things that you could kind of throw in there to give them certain targets to go look for.